Hello, welcome to the Creators Guild podcast. I'm Chris Howell, and with me,
Jared Lovelady.
and we're here to talk about all things creative. Starting off as we normally do, go buy our book. If you haven't bought it yet, go get your copy. Book 2, Jared, how's book 2 coming along?
Book 2 is coming along very well, actually.
Yeah.
We outlined our last chapter.
Yeah, by outlined, we've had it planned. We're doing rewrites. We outlined the last new chapter.
The last new chapter, yeah.
So we are hoping we're going to hand it to the editor this week.
Hopefully.
Fingers crossed. If you're listening to, so we're passing it off to our content editor. If you're listening, surprise, we might be handing a book off to you this week. So we'll see. We have made pretty good progress, though. We just should have been making the progress we're making right now in November, right?
Yes.
Or July.
Some point before the beginning of the year.
Some point before now. But hey, again, if any of you are very philanthropic and you want the books, you want our whole series to be written much, much faster, all it takes is time. But in order for us to have the time, we just have to have the money to have time.
That's all we need.
That's all we need. So if you are that person, just help us just buy our time and we can do it. But I am done. So again, if you know any wealthy matrons that Jared could woo, let us know. We'll send him their way. He'll be very nice and kind to them, and they can fund we turn our hobby into our full-time practice.
Yes.
That's the plan. Find somebody. Anybody listening. Find the wealthy person that Jared needs to woo and who can fund us. Okay. So today we wanted to dive into a little bit on parsing things down and making cuts. And talk a little, I guess really not necessarily parsing things down, making cuts, but the cuts that we have made and things we have parsed down means we have extras.
Yeah.
Yay. Everybody loves extras, right? When you're doing world building and whatnot. So we've been through book 1. If you've read it or if you've followed along in our podcast so far, then you will have heard all of book 1. You know who characters are. So if you go all the way back to the beginning of book 1, we have a prologue, and that prologue takes place when Tawara was about 10 years old. So about 108 years-ish before chapter 1 begins. Sets the stage for the direction Tawara is going to go in her life, her motivation to become the Accolade. Where did she get that from? Why is it important to her? The fears of her father and, how that impacted him, how it led to Tawara's seclusion and her isolation because of him being afraid of her going out and him losing her. So that prologue set up, you don't have to read the prologue to understand our book, but there are key elements in that prologue that give you insight into Tawara and her father. Some people don't read prologues. Read the prologues. Read prologues. Robert Jordan has a 60 some odd page prologue in one of the books. Very long.
Yeah.
That might be a bit excessive.
A little bit.
Although one of the reasons we kind of dove back in and wanted to talk about extras is we're currently struggling with a prologue epilogue situation right now, going into book 2, book 3. Everything's written, but it's a matter of figuring out which one, what prologue, what epilogue, how do things fit together. They all have key elements that tie into other portions of the story, and they add context and bring in some new features, bring in world elements that are going to be key, some characters that are going to be key.
What it boils down to is we have a 25-page epilogue.
Yes, exactly.
That we're not sure we want to use as an epilogue because of the length.
Yeah. So to put that in word count for direct comparison, in our book, our chapters average around 4,000 words per chapter. Our long chapters are maybe like between 5,000 and 6,000 words. But like we did have a chapter that was 9,000 words. We found a break. We split it up, had to add a little bit, and ended up being, about like 4,500 words in one, 4,700 words in another ish.
Yeah.
So, something like that. While one epilogue that we're looking at, one of them that we're tossing around and we're comparing and trying to figure out what to do exactly between book 2 and book 3, 13,700 words.
That's a few.
Yeah. So when you compare that to, well, a long chapter is 6,000 words. This is double the long chapter. Like it's a lot. But reading it, like we just read it the other day, I didn't get bored reading it. Things keep happening throughout we have a little bit of build up, some dialogue, and then things happen, and some more things happen, and some more things happen. But they're all, none of them, nothing in what we were reading and what we're developing is like, it's all stuff that is going to be critical to the rest of the world and the rest of the story. There's some characters that come in that you haven't met before, and they are going to be critical to the future of the existence of this world and the people that are in them. The events that happen are critical events that will all have an impact on the future of the other characters and what they do and the adventures they go on and everything. So we were like, how can we split this up? Well, you can't split up a prologue or an epilogue and be like, chapters -3, -2, and -1,
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? What do we do?
It doesn't work that way.
It's got, like, there's these elements that they're the stuff we're putting in are foundational to the rest of the story. Like, it's all stuff that is very important to the future. And characters, like I said, that are going to be part of the future. And most of the prologue is from a new character's perspective. It's a flashback. So one, how do you split up a flashback in the middle of a story? And two, how do you make a flashback that is 13,700 words long that has all this critical stuff in it and fit that in?
I think it might work as a prologue.
I don't know. That's a lot. It's 3 chapters worth for a prologue. I don't know. Anybody listening, if you have an opinion, comment, email us. Let us know if you have an opinion on prologues that are that long. I'm getting the feeling that like epilogues that long are like, no. From checking around, like, don't do epilogue. People, when they get done with the book, they're like, oh, it's done. And then they're like, wait a minute, I got another 30 pages to read as the epilogue? I'm getting the sense of don't do that as an epilogue.
Yeah.
But as a prologue, I've got the sense that, well, maybe a prologue can be that long.
Maybe.
I don't know. Share your thoughts. Send us an email. Comment on our. Tell us what you think. Tell us, are we just crazy, or do we just need to cut it? And I don't know. It's too good. Gosh dang it! Stupid. Conundrums. So we'll get it figured out. And then just be like, let it be. Whatever. Okay. It's a pretty big conundrum that we're facing right now. But some of that might end up becoming extra. I don't know. I don't know how. I have no idea how at the moment. I don't know how to crop it. It was longer, and we went through and cut out the stuff that we were like, no, we don't need this. This is extra. This kind of goes off on a tangent, and we focused it back in. But the pieces that happen are critical to the characters and then critical to things that will happen later on.
I think we could still do some trimming.
There's probably some,
but
we can take out some these and ands, and
there's probably, I don't know, maybe 1,000 words worth of trimming we could do. We could take out some detail.
Maybe. I mean, you think about
there's one part I'm thinking of that could be definitely be shortened up a bit, but
yeah.
But
I don't know. Listen, anybody following along? What do you think? If it's 13,000 words long and we cut it from 13,000 to 12,000, that's about 3 pages, 3 document pages, which translates into about 5 book pages.
Yeah.
So it'd cut about 5 pages out. If we cut it down by 1,000.
So I still think it's too long for an epilogue.
Yeah. Still, I agree.
But we may be able to switch it in as the prologue to 3.
Yeah. Yeah. It was what we're struggling with right now is we currently have this. We know the prologue to book 3 falls right into place and is a really good epilogue for book 2.
Yeah. They're fairly interchangeable. Yeah.
The epilogue to book 2 makes a really good epilogue to book 2, but it also makes an excellent prologue going into book 3, because if the prologue for what we're dealing with right now, the stuff that happens in what is currently an epilogue that's way too long is going to tie directly into things that are happening in book 3. So maybe we just need a long prologue in book 3 and just be like, long prologue, you get a long prologue, and we just try to parse it down and cut it down some.
I think that's probably the way we're going to go, but we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll get some feedback.
Yeah, we've talked about taking that. I was trying to think of how to take that and maybe make it like parse it up into some early chapters of book 3. But then I'm like, well, how do you parse up a giant flashback into 2 or 3 chapters?
Yeah.
Like, does that work? Maybe if they're like immediately sequential.
Maybe.
And you just split. You have like a little interlude flashback thing, because it is from a character's perspective who's going to be in the book. It's not the gopher in Winnie the Pooh. It's like, I'm not in the book, No, they all will be there. So, I don't know. Conundrums, making decisions, figuring out plot points and everything. I don't know. We did just discover today, before pulling this together to record right now, we were talking through the very end of book 2 and came to a realization. We're like, wait a minute, this one character, because of the path we've laid out right here, like we know her direction and where she's going to go and everything. And then we just realized here's this whole other element of stuff that because of the way this character ends, there's a whole other element of her character arc and what potential pathways open up for her. We're like, a whole new world.
Because we need more content to play with.
I know, right? That's like, gosh dang it. She's not a main character though, so it's not huge, but it does open up. We know where she's going to go and where she's going to end up already, but her pathway to get there isn't fully defined. And she's going to come back, book 4, book 5, right in that general area. We know what will befall her.
Yeah.
And the trajectory to get her there, but we just realized there's more options. More options to get her into that point because of the way we set up. So it's really, as long as we've been working on this, as much as we've been developing the world and the pathways for our characters and everything, to suddenly realize, like, wait a minute, this isn't a plot hole, but it does this one trajectory that we set this character on. We're like, wait a minute, we just now opened up a whole plethora of, a fork typically has multiple, you do a fork in the road and you're like, 2 directions. Well, forks usually have more than 2. So at least the forks in our world, modern forks.
Yeah.
They have more than 2. Well, there's more than 2 for her available now. So we'll probably have a little bit of fun with that character, but it's fun to be like, how many thousands of pages of notes and directions and plotting and everything, and then be like, hey, guess what? Let's throw some more complexity in there.
Yeah.
But anyway, book 2 will be coming out soon. Fingers crossed. And then when we get to that point, maybe we will remember this episode and be like, hey, remember when we talked about this? This is why. But that'll be a while.
Yeah.
Okay. So we wanted to share today. We cut this out. We talked about bringing this back in at some point, and then we're like, well, there isn't really a good point to pull this back in. Who knows? Maybe it'll end up in like book 5 and everybody will remember this right now when book 5 comes out and be like, hey, yeah, this is from like a long time ago and it's tweaked a little bit, whatever.
Yeah, I don't think so though.
But yeah, probably not. I mean,
this is really cool, but
yeah.
We took it out for a reason.
Yeah.
It doesn't move the story in a way that's meaningful, I don't think.
I mean, there's a specific thing, and I'm not going to say it. There's a specific sequence of events that we already know is going to happen. Those sequence of events will start happening. They will begin. Well, actually, the very beginnings of those events happen in book 2, and then the growth of those seeds that are planted in book 2 will start to take root in book 3. And by book 4, they're going to be full on happening with one character in particular. And this would potentially, and by the time we get to very specifically, book 5, by the time we get into book 5, this would directly be like a flashback point, a potential flashback from one character who's in this. Like, everybody knows who Lady Iskar is, but by book 5, like, there will be, with the direction her character is going, this in book 5 could potentially be a flashback for her.
Yeah.
But it's not a requirement. So maybe, who knows? It could end up showing, you could end up seeing this in book 5. Saying that tells you nothing. I'm not giving you any spoilers of anything that's happening. But, not likely to happen at this point. But anyway, we wanted to share this as, here's a little extra for you. This was the original prologue to book 1, A Flight from Shadows. And it was originally set, chapter 1 was what the prologue is now. And this was the prologue. And we just said, hey, we're just going to shift those because there's enough of a gap with chapter 1 with the story from Tawara's mother dying and the start of Tawara's story. There's a gap between there. It's a little bit of a separation. So let's just put that as the prologue and then begin with Tawara going on a ride. So that's what we did. And this dropped out and we said, you know what? These characters come in. We don't actually need this. It builds some world stuff, tells us about these people. We're going to learn about them anyway. So let's pull this prologue out. So we figured today we'll give you a little bit of extra. So I'm going to read original prologue to book 1. Okay. After months of training, Shay still felt unnerved by the Alkari mother's reactions during birth. She had been reassured that she would get used to it in time, but it was so alien and off-putting. The mother seemed only to care about Lady Iskar, the head of the birthing house. The labor, even the pain and the physical strain, was secondary to pleasing the High Lady. As Shay stood to the side of the head, man, I'm reading terribly today. Let's try it.
Let's try that again.
Let's try this again, shall we? I need to pull this a little closer. It's not bad eyes, but it is trying to read across the screen and make it sound good and all that. Anyway, here we go again. Yes. We're just going to continue. As Shay stood to the side of the bed, she pressed her hands to her middle in hopes that it might help calm the emotions warring within her. She had been a midwife for 15 years and had risen to high rank in her previous house. For the last 5 of those 15 years, she had been training new midwives. Now she was the one in training. Despite her vast experience, Shay was intimidated, to say the least. If she completed her training to become a member of the Alkari birthing house of Skaroth, she would immediately be placed in a high position in the city. She would have the ear of the city council, not to mention be a personal member of the house of Lady Iskar, who herself sat on the ruling council of the Empire of Perome. May it stand forever. Not only did Lady Iskar sit on the ruling council, but she had held her seat for over 20 years. To top it off, she had been matron of the Alkari birthing house for more than 30 years. This made her a chief counselor of the Alkari Trade Guild. The woman was a legend. Shay's time in the house had given her a deep respect and an abiding love for Lady Iskar. She loved to see the gentleness shown to the Alkari. The staff of the house were close-knit and followed Lady Iskar's example of tenderness and support for one another. However, all were fully aware that deviating from Lady Iskar's instructions in the birthing process or in training would see any midwife or house member destitute in the streets, a weighty burden to carry, along with the esteem of the positions they would each hold. "You are doing so well, sweet one," said Lady Iskar as she tenderly dabbed a cool, wet cloth on Sarlinia's sweaty brow. When Sarlinia smiled back up at Lady Iskar, it could have melted Shay's heart. She watched Sarlinia for any sign of trouble or concern, but all seemed well. Lady Iskar simply smiled and continued her soothing and dabbing. The High Lady sat on the edge of the bed, her upper body twisted so she could face Sarlinia. Her large green eyes were bright against deep amber skin. She wore heavy eyeliner that extended out like wings under her temples. A scrollwork of tattoos lined her cheeks, the telltale signs of a high-ranking member of the Alkari Trade Guild. Her midnight hair was pulled back into a tight bun on the back of her head. She radiated calm as she spoke gentle, comforting words to Sarlinia. "I know it is difficult, dear one," Lady Iskar said soothingly in the lilting tones of a Skarathi accent. Sarlinia's body tensed under a contraction. "You can cry out if you need to," the High Lady continued. "I will not be upset with you. It is perfectly acceptable." Sarlinia wore no clothes, but was draped in a lightweight blanket that covered her swollen belly. Her expression was pained, despite her attempts to smile up at Lady Iskar. As the contraction progressed, Sarlinia responded with a moan through gritted teeth that rose into a cry of pain. A sheen of sweat on Sarlinia's body reflected the soft glow of lamps. She was a beautiful creature. Her long silver hair was pulled back in a loose braid and shimmered in the lamplight, her long pointed ears poking through the silver locks. She had beautiful, slightly tilted lavender eyes that looked on Lady Iskar with complete devotion. Her skin reminded Shay of the ocean near her own hometown. It was a soft blue-gray with swirling patterns of purple and black freckles, like coral, just below the water's surface. Shay considered herself attractive, but the Alkari had a different kind of beauty. They were exotic and alluring. Besides her tilted eyes and skin coloring, Sarlinia was tall and shapely. Shay was an average height, with most women. If Sarlinia had stood next to her, she would have towered over Shay by more than 2 hands. It was at least comforting to know Shay would never have to face competition in that area with Sarlinia. "There you are," Lady Iskar continued as the contraction subsided. "That's it. Now, deep breath, slowly. Good, good. You're my strong, beautiful girl." Shay looked around the room as she stood waiting for instructions from the High Lady. She admired the luxurious surroundings. In her previous house, the birthing rooms had been comfortable but bland, designed for utility. By contrast, a birthing room of Lady Iskar's house could have been a sitting room in any palace. The colored marble floor tiles created a mosaic sunburst. Its rays spread from the center of the circular room to end in a vine pattern that encircled the floor. Mahogany panels lined the marble walls. Each one was carved with forest creatures accented with gold leaf, the details so precise that one could almost count the individual hairs on the leaping deer or the barbs of feathers of soaring fowl. Amber glass-wrapped gold lamps hung on walls, and four small braziers placed strategically around the room burned with low flames. The combination gave warmth of temperature and color to the room. The domed ceiling was a cloudburst with more gold leaf accenting the edges of each cloud. Pinks and lavenders blended to give the illusion of a near-ending sunset. 6 women lined the walls, observing the proceedings. They were a blend of ethnicities, ranging from the plump, snow-skinned Anaya, who shared the same northeastern coastal features as Shay, with her large doe eyes and midnight hair, to the shapely, ash-skinned Meili, with attributes of eastern Brundia. Her exquisite tilted orange eyes were like polished amber, and her hair shimmered like a ruby. They each wore the same blue silk and white wool uniform of the Skaroth birthing house, and each had long hair pulled into a tight bun on the back of her head. Several contractions came and went as the midwife stood in silence, watching and waiting. Finally, Lady Iskar looked up. "It is time," she said calmly, as she arose to stand beside the bed. "Meili, you will stand ready in case you are needed. Shay, step up beside me and do as I instruct, please." Shay set her jaw against a nervous flutter in her stomach. She was a midwife in the most esteemed birthing house in the realm, assisting a legend in the birth of a foal. She would do her duty, and do it with precision. She quickly made the sign of the life goddess before drawing closer to the bed. She shared a quick glance with Meili, who smiled weakly in Shay's direction. Together they turned their attention to Lady Iskar and Sarlinia on the bed. The High Lady reached out to take Shay's hand and pulled her gently forward into the proper position. One hand was directed to Sarlinia's stomach, the other to her upper chest. "You have been through the binding?" It was a statement more than a question, but Shay nodded in affirmation. "Through the binding, you will sense when nature is ready. Her body wants the foal to come out, but you must feel and control the process." Each woman in the room had been through the binding ritual. 3 drops of blood with her blood mixed with that of Sarlinia's in one of the ruined bowls. A guildmaster had recited the incantations that bound their blood together. By sipping from the blood mixture, they had each bound their blood to the Alkari woman, which gave the ability to sense the other woman's body and help nature through the process. "You must feel her," Lady Iskar intoned, her voice quiet but instructional and intense, as if she could embed the knowledge of her years directly into Shay's head by force of words alone. "Let go of your senses. Relax your body and your mind, and feel for the otherness that is Sarlinia." Shay closed her eyes. She had been trained to feel through the binding. She didn't listen with her ears or feel with her hands. Rather, she listened and felt from within herself and reached for a feeling of otherness. She went through the exercises, like those used in relaxation techniques. Starting with her feet, she let her muscles relax. Next, she moved to her lower legs, then her upper legs, and continued the process of breathing, relaxing, and sensing. She moved to her shoulders and allowed the weight of her arms to pull them down. She rolled her head down toward her chest, exhaled, and there it was. She could feel another set of shoulders that flexed differently than her own. She mentally held that feeling expanded, and allowed it to spread back down her own body. She felt the sense of otherness grow until it fully encompassed her. When she opened her eyes, the sensation shifted, and the feeling aligned with the sight of the Alkari woman lying on the bed. Shay moved her eyes up and down the woman's body. She sensed what the other woman was feeling, what her body was wanting to do in reaction to nature. When she scanned the woman's protruding belly, a second sense of otherness reached her mind. She couldn't make out the individual parts, but could sense an overall health and position of the body. A small smile lit her face as she felt the tiny body squirm and kick. "You've made the connection?" Lady Iskar asked. "Tell me what you feel." "I can sense them both," Shay replied, concentrating. "She is very close, but not quite ready. The child is large, and it is extremely active." Those last words were said with a slight chuckle. "Indeed," Lady Iskar replied, a smile in her own voice. "It is good that you sense the size of the child. We must help nature along. We do not want any excess strain on either Sarlinia or the child, and we do not want any tearing or bleeding. I will coach you, and you will be the conduit to coax nature in the direction we want. Are you ready?" "I'm ready, High Lady," stated Shay confidently. "Very good," Lady Iskar said. "Let us begin." The process took several hours, with only brief pauses. It was a magical yet exhausting experience. With Lady Iskar coaching her every move, Shay coaxed and comforted Sarlinia. From an outsider's perspective, the differences between a human and an Alkari birth would be minimal, but to Shay they were worlds apart. Through the binding, she could sense and almost control every contraction, movement of muscle, and the very birth itself. It was as though her words to Sarlinia defied the demands of nature and put the birthing process on her timing. It was really quite magnificent, both to watch and to participate in. So many people called birth a miracle, but a birth through the binding, being able to assist Lady Iskar with her sorrels, was like a true miracle in real time. While some birthing houses experience the regular challenges and complications that can accompany birth, in her 30 years, Lady Iskar had developed such control over the process that she hadn't lost a sorrel or buck to complications in over 20 years. Shay knew this and followed the High Lady's direction with no thought of question, only a desire to learn and perfect the process herself. Shay was sweating nearly as much as Sarlinia was when with a final push, the foal came into the world and was received by Mayli's welcoming hands. "It's a buck," Mayli exclaimed. "He's beautiful. Look at him. He must be the largest baby I've ever seen." She was grinning as she carried him to the preparation table to begin cleaning him and checking him over. "She is doing very well," said Lady Iskar. She and Shay continued to coax Sarlinia through the afterbirth and monitor her as the two other midwives in training came forward to help clean and care and make her comfortable, and Mayli made cooing sounds from the preparation table. When Lady Iskar finally stood, Shay followed her example, and the feeling of otherness slipped away. It was a chilling effect as it left, and she shivered despite the sweat she felt on her body. Lady Iskar stepped past her, bending to kiss Sarlinia gently on the forehead. "Rest now, my beautiful Sarlinia. The midwives will care for you. You should be very happy. I am most pleased with you." "Thank you, High Lady," said Sarlinia sweetly. "I will do as you wish." She immediately lay back, a smile on her face as she closed her eyes, her body visibly relaxed as the midwives cleaned and cared for her. "Well," said Lady Iskar with a smile as she stepped forward to loop her arm through Shay's, "let us go welcome our new young buck, shall we?" Shay was led to the preparation table, where Mayli stood and cared for a new infant, now swaddled in white linen. Mayli turned her head to grin at the women as they approached. "He's so beautiful, High Lady," said Mayli, "and his size! He must be nearly 3/4 stone." She brought a hand to her mouth and giggled, despite the consternation showing on her face. "Poor Sarlinia! I feel simply dreadful for her." Lady Iskar let out her own laugh and released Shay, patting Mayli on the arm. "She will be quite all right," she assured Mayli. "The control through the binding helps us ease some of that, and there was no tearing. She should be sore for a while, but no more than any other mother, I suspect." "Now," Lady Iskar continued, "you two did very well today. I know the exhaustion you both will feel, if it hasn't hit you yet. Inexperience in control through the binding can be quite draining. I want you both to get plenty of rest for the next few days. Take some time for yourselves. Ponder over the feelings you experience today while they are fresh. It will help you in the future. But no other training. I mean what I say when I tell you to rest." "Yes, High Lady," they intoned together. "Mayli, my dear," said Lady Iskar as she turned her attention to the woman and grasped one of Mayli's hands in her own. "I thank you for your assistance today." "I'm thankful for your trust, Lady Iskar," said Mayli as she squeezed the High Lady's hand affectionately. "And you, my sweet, precious Shay," Lady Iskar continued, as she turned her face to Shay and offered a quick embrace. "You were exceptional today. I am quite pleased with your control and composure." She turned with Shay to face the table. "And just look at what your efforts produced. He is quite magnificent, is he not?" "Indeed," said Shay, grateful for the High Lady's praise. "I must agree with Mayli. I would not appreciate squeezing out such a child." Lady Iskar laughed again. "Let us be grateful we do not have babies of such proportions." The High Lady reached out to cradle the wrapped buck in practiced arms. Oh, I am pleased, she said to no one in particular. She looked at the infant's face while her fingers caressed his cheek. We need a few more bucks this year. My breeding schedule was thrown off this spring, and we've had more sorrels than I like to see. But we'll be all right. I'll get us back on track. I do wish sometimes that we could keep the bucks trained in too, she said wistfully. Shay laughed. I dare say you do a better jobs than the buck houses. Some of the bucks turn out seem so unprepared. Oh, they do the best they can, said Lady Iscar, looking up to meet Shay's eyes. After all, you can only expect so much from training by men. Shay laughed again as Lady Iscar turned to hand the bundle off to Melee. As she watched the exchange, she caught a glimpse of Sarlinia on the bed, and a thought came to her. Lady Iscar, said Shay, may I ask a question? Of course, my dear, said the High Lady, giving Shay her attention. Well, Shay began hesitantly, I've been through the training, and I've witnessed the requisite number of births, but I still wonder. She paused for a moment, considering. It's just that Sarlinia has moved on already. Does she feel anything for her foal? It's so unnatural. Shouldn't a mother want her child? Even animals in the wild care for their young, and will not abandon them. Lady Iscar turned her gaze to Sarlinia, with calm and caring on her face. Her devotion is to us, to those in the house. The Alkari have no connection to each other, or to anything else, only to those to whom they are bound. To her the birth is something we wanted her to do, and so she did it to please us. She has no other emotion for the foal, and he will have no connection to her. Shay shook her head, still not able to fully comprehend. Maybe with time she would understand. You will become more accustomed to it with time, said the High Lady, mimicking Shay's own thoughts, before turning her attention back to the foal in Maylee's arms. Maylee, she instructed, please take our newest bundle to the nursery in the foal wing. Make sure they record his measurements and his first feedings and with the wet nurses. They are to keep all his records under the name Alandar. I will be in to inspect him more closely after he is properly cleaned and fed. Yes, High Lady, Maylee replied. It will be as you instruct. Lady Iscar gave Alandar a small peck on the forehead before gliding from the room. Maylee flashed a quick smile at Shay, then turned to follow the High Lady through the door. Shay followed Maylee as her eyes wandered back to Sarlinia. The Alkari woman's eyes were open now. They stared up at the amber lamps as she lay on the bed resting, a look of contentment on her face as she was oblivious to the child being carried from the room. So, there you go. That's the original Book 1 prologue.
Yeah. It's a good prologue.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole, like the entire purpose of this prologue was we wanted to get the name Alandar out there because Alandar's in Book 1. We wanted to get Lady Iscar out there. She also was in Book 1. And we wanted to establish this whole scene of this mother just gave birth. You know, the Alkari are humanoid. So she gives birth, but we wanted to emphasize the fact that even in birth, like a mother going through birth, having a baby, the mother does all of it to please Lady Iscar under the direction and command of Lady Iscar and Shay. Once the baby's gone, they walk out of the room with the baby, and Sarlinia is just oblivious to the fact that she's tired, she's sore, she just pushed out a watermelon, and that's the end of it. So, cats have babies, they turn around to their young. Cows have babies, they turn around and find their young. Sarlinia, nothing.
Nope, because the Alkari are...
Alkari.
Yeah.
So, if you hopefully you picked up on that in Book 1, with Lady Iscar, obviously when Lady Iscar shows up, she no longer has black hair, midnight black hair pulled back into a bun. Now her hair's gray. At this point in the prologue, she had been running the birthing house for 30 years. So she's got some age on her, but her hair is not great yet. By the time Alandar shows up and he's a gladiator, she's got the gray hair. She talks through, she explains stuff to Tawara about Alkari. We get that, when after the fight scene and everything, and then they go back and they have dinner. She talks to Lady Iskar. We get some of this, but this, when we originally wrote this prologue, it was to set up this world where these Alkari people exist, and what are they? According to Lady Iskar, Shay, Maylee, the people in this room, Sarlinia does everything, like her devotion, the devotion in her eyes, the connection that Shay feels, everything. They're completely controlled, absolutely, by those to whom they're bound. Even to the point of Sarlinia has no feeling whatsoever for the fact that she just gave birth. She can speak. She's intelligent. She knows what birthing is. Like, she mated. She had a mate, went through the process, went through pregnancy. It's not like she's a horse that is trying to figure out what's going on. She knows all of it. She's educated. But every aspect of her education, her personality, her life, her giving birth, everything, all of it is centered around. She is absolutely under the absolute, even from an emotional and intellectual perspective, 100% under the control and at the true beck and call of Lady Iskar and those to whom she's bound. So, if you didn't get that in book one, hopefully, hopefully you got that from book one, but that was the point of this prologue, to set up, this is the world that we're coming into. There's magic. The magic binds people. It's blood, used through blood. There's Alkari birthing houses. There's an Alkari trade guild. There's an empire of Parom. Lady Iskar is very high up in the empire of Parom. By the time Tawara comes in and meets Alandar and witnesses everything, Lady Iskar has moved up even higher. To where, as Tawara says, when she sees her and they introduce her and everything, and she's like, wait a minute, this lady is the equivalent of the Queen of the Elves. Like, she is the most powerful person in this empire, and she's not sitting on the ruling council. She is the head of the ruling council and runs the entire, it's the empire of Parom, and she's in charge of the empire, and she sits as the priesthood leader of the entire Separan, of all of the Separans, which make up the background theocracy that run the empire of Parom.
Yep. She's a big deal.
Yeah. So there's a little extra for you. We'll get a little bit more from, a little bit more, well, a lot more book 2.
Yeah.
This stuff that'll come out. I'm still thinking, like, after reading through it again, I'm like, well, fitting it in as a flashback, I have stronger doubts that this will ever fit in as a flashback.
Yeah.
It's still, by the time you get to around book 5, if you remember this episode, for anybody who's following along, you'll have a little bit of extra. And if something in book 5 kicks off your memory, maybe it'll be like you'll have a little, I don't know if I'd call it an Easter egg. But maybe
bonus material.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, like what we have planned for book 5. And I know people listening are being like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not going to tell you because you'll have to keep reading to find out. But my hope is, like, maybe if you've listened to this episode, anybody listening, you've heard this part of the story. By the time you get into book 5 and the events that will happen in book 5, maybe you'll be like, aha, now I know why this could potentially have been a flashback in this book and why it would fit to be here, to add another layer of emotion, connection, whatever.
Yeah.
To that piece of the story. That's a long way from now.
Yeah.
Unless you find a wealthy matron for Jared to woo really soon. Then it can happen in a much faster pace.
I think he's trying to marry me off.
You don't even have to get married. Like, it can be somebody like, we're just friends, but I provide company and we go on walks, and she pays for us to be able to write full time. Whatever. Like, I'm not picky. I don't know if you're picky, but on your behalf, I'm not picky. So just so you know, if you know any wealthy matrons out there that we can hook Jared up with, I'm not picky in that regard at all. So keep that in mind while you're looking. Okay. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that prologue, a little bit of extra that we're sending your way. Again, going back to what we were talking about before, if you do have any insights, if you have any thoughts on having essentially a 3-chapter equivalent prologue, let us know. We will take your advice under consideration. We may or may not listen to it, but we will take it into consideration.
Yes.
So much more work to do. So much. There's so much work ahead of us.
Yes, but more done every day.
Yes, a little bit more done, including today. We've already done. We did a whole chapter today. I'm like, amazeballs. It's great. Well, thanks for coming along with us today. We appreciate you going along the ride for us, or coming along on this ride with us. Hopefully you're still enjoying listening to the sound of my voice. We'll have more coming up with learning with Liz. Liz will be back on with us pretty soon.
Couple weeks, yeah.
Yep. Some of the Writers Guild people we're going to try to get more and more people from the Writers Guild and other writers coming on. So you're not just listening to us share our opinions all the time. We want to get some more interviews. We've got Tremendicon coming up the end of May. It'll be at the Oasis.
The Oasis.
The Oasis Convention Center in Springfield, Missouri. Go check it out. Go buy tickets. Come see us there. We'll have copies of book 1. We're hoping we want to have book 2 finished. There's physically not enough time at this point to get hard copies in hand.
No,
but we're pushing pretty hard to get the ebook available by then.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Fingers crossed that we have the ebook ready and released, edited, finished, good to go, released by that point. So watch for that. But come see us at Tremendicon. There, we met a lot of cool people there. Hopefully we'll be able to set up and what we had planned on doing last year, bring people in and interview not just authors but creators. Speaking of which, if you do creative stuff, so Caleb's come on a couple times. We need to have Caleb back on again.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, I've asked him about it, and then he's like, "Oh, let's talk about man." Okay, well, he still does a lot of creative stuff. We're gonna try to got a couple different things. We'll have more leather work from him. A couple other not paraphernalia. What is it? Merchandise.
Paraphernalia.
I'm trying to think what it is. Anyway, we'll have other merchandise. Hopefully, have other merchandise there at Tremendicon. Cool stuff that that goes along with Duradim books and A Flight from Shadows, Chronicles of Duradim. Come see us May 31st through June 2nd.
Or is it the 30th through the 1st? Whatever that last weekend is.
Well, it's the last. Yeah, it's Friday. Friday's
Saturday,
the last
Sunday.
day of May. So
Okay.
it starts Friday. 30 days has September, April, June, and November. 31. So May 31st and then June 1st and 2nd, that weekend. Come see us, the Oasis Convention Center in Springfield, and then look for book 2 coming out. And again, if you are a creator, let us know. Reach out to us. We'd love to have you on the show, and talk to you about what you do and share what you do with our tens of listeners. Well, on that note, we will see you next time. Till then, go in good spirits. Thanks for listening to the Creators Guild podcast. Don't forget to get your copy of A Flight from Shadows, available on Amazon. While you're there, please rate it and give it a review. If you like the Creators Guild, please like and subscribe, and make sure to share it with your friends. Until next time, go in good spirits.